In the outer reaches of the Solnari expanse, where stars swirl like slow-burning embers in the velvet dark, the Virelians reign supreme. For 2 millennia, there's been the final word in every dispute, the hammer of authority in every corner of charted space. They were not tyrants. They simply were tall, crystalline beings whose minds interfaced directly with quantum logic rays. They had transcended the boundaries of flesh and thought. Empires bowed to them not out of fear, but out of certainty. No one questioned the Virelians because, for as long as memory served, nothing had ever threatened them. Until the signal. It was faint, no more than a whisper folded into a tachyon burst that rippled across gravitational corridors. It bore no language, only coordinates. Dead space near a collapsed binary system long abandoned after stellar collapse. Curious, perhaps even arrogant, the Virelians dispatched an observation vessel, the Threnan's Veil, a minor gesture, like flicking an eye toward disturbance on the edge of one's peripheral vision. Commander Elaren stood at the ship's central interface nexus, her translucent skin catching the pale glow of navigational streams. She was among the youngest to hold command of a Virelian vessel, but her mind carried war patterns older than most civilizations. Calm, calculating, she absorbed data as it flowed into her neural lattice. The signal's origin lies beneath the debris field. No biosigns, no emissions. Her adjutant, Moxus, reported his voice was emotionless, yet in the subtle modulation of his frequency, she detected hesitation. Proceed. Maintain distance. Full spectrum scans, she replied, eyes narrowing. The debris thinned as the veil approached, and then it came into view. At first, it resembled wreckage, jagged, inert, wedged between ice and rock. But as the ship drew closer, it became clear this was no derelict. Its shape was purposeful. Angular, almost predatory, the hull layered like obsidian scales. The outer plating pulsed faintly, responding to the presence of the Virelians with an awareness that was not machine nor organic, but something disquietingly between. It's not in any known registry, Moxa said, rerunning recognition protocols in futility. Elaren moved closer to projection, her gaze locking onto the strange glyphs etched into the ship's surface. Symbols without symmetry or origin, yet they felt familiar, wrongly familiar, like dreams stolen from another life. Without command, the veil sensors reached out, brushing the ship's outer shell. In an instant, feedback spiked. Systems flickered. Reality twisted. For a moment, only a moment, Elaren saw stars bending backward. She saw herself aging in reverse, screaming without sound. A universe collapsing into a point of thought. Then it was gone. The ship remained, inert again, as if nothing had happened. Disengage. Pull us back. Elaren snapped, slamming her palm against the command seal. The veil responded, engines surging to life. But the space around them didn't yield. Gravity, or something masquerading as it, refused to let go. Impossible, Moxus murmured, panic infecting his tone now. It's holding us. No, it's watching us. The realization struck with cold clarity. This ship, whatever it was, had not been dormant. It had been waiting, not passively, but knowingly, an intelligence folded in on itself, beyond the comprehension even of the Virelians. In the heart of projection sphere, the ship began to change. Slowly its engines lit, not with flame or plasma, but with molten light, swirling like captured suns. The air in the command deck thickened, reality groaning under the weight of something wrong. Retreat vector calculated. Moxus choked. But, Commander, it's... Before he could finish, a lance of golden energy surged from the unknown vessel. It didn't strike. It enveloped. The veil system shut down in unison, not violently, but peacefully, like a predator lulling prey into silence before the end. But the end did not come. Instead, a voice of the ideal one filled the minds of the Virelians aboard, not spoken in words, but in sensation, gravity collapsing, time fragmenting, thoughts overlapping. You are not ready. And just like that, the veil was released. They drifted, powered down, shaken. Elaren gasped as her thoughts reassembled. She looked across the command deck and saw her crew blinking back into coherence. None of them spoke. There was nothing to say. They were alive, and that was both unexpected and terrifying. Back on the capital world of Delira Prime, the report was received with disbelief. The High Conclave, beings of infinite calculation and emotionless logic, debated the findings in secrecy. The Veil's log showed no damage. No trace energy matched the ship's weapons, or propulsion, or its materials. The Virelians had faced unknowns before. They had encountered hostile races, rogue intelligences, cosmic anomalies. But this thing, defied every model they possessed. It had demonstrated absolute control and chosen not to act. That decision, that restraint, terrified them more than any weapon ever had. Across the galaxy, ripples spread. Whispers reached the edges of the known systems. The Virelians had been bested, not in battle, but in understanding. For the first time in millennia, they did not hold all the answers. And somewhere, out in that cold field of stars, the ship moved again. Quiet, deliberate, purposeful. It was not finished. And neither was the galaxy. The ship did not flee. It drifted with intention, crossing parsecs with the silence of inevitability. The Virelians tracked its path through gravitational distortions and particle shifts, but never visually. Its form only appeared when it chose to be seen. And when it did, systems blinked out, data collapsed into static, and thought itself frayed at the edges. There was no pursuing it, only witnessing. Commander Elaren was not discharged after the incident. Instead, she was summoned directly to the Ascendant Core, where only the most consequential discussions in the Virelian Dominion occurred. Her memories were extracted, reconstructed, relived by the Conclave, and yet they still did not understand. "What is it you believe it wants?" asked the Archlens, a being who had not spoken aloud in centuries. Elaren stood unshaken, though the presence of 12 minds bound in a single chamber pressed against her with the weight of galaxies. It did not want to destroy us. It wanted us to see, to understand we were not alone, and that we were not above consequence. The Archlens considered her answer. That is not knowledge. That is interpretation. "Perhaps," she replied, "but it chose to spare us. That means something." Permission was granted for deeper study. Not pursuit. No fleet was to engage without invitation. Instead, the ship's trajectory was analyzed, and it became clear it was not random. Every system it passed held a buried secret. Ruins, black sites, relics predating the Virelians themselves. It was not wandering. It was searching. Elaren was given command again, this time of a new vessel, the Virelian Talas, outfitted with experimental quantum dampeners and null-time observatories. Her crew was small, elite minds trusted to think beyond limits, to adapt in real time. Among them was Kaelith, a techno-savant whose neural web had grown so vast it required external cooling systems. He did not speak much, preferring thought link, but from a moment he saw the ship's fractured data burst. He had volunteered, or as he phrased it, been compelled. Its design violates all material logic. Kaelith mused as they neared their target system, a dead cluster called Varnak's Grave. Its hull reflects no energy, yet emits detectable gravitational ripples. It is built from contradiction. "Not contradiction," Elaren replied. "Principle beyond understanding." The ship had arrived hours before them. It hovered over the shattered remains of a planet, once colonized, now reduced to ice and silence. No heat signatures, no movement, and yet they knew it was not empty. The Talas approached slowly. Every scan returned error codes. Visuals flickered, shapes reconfiguring mid-observation. Then a pulse emerged, slow, deliberate, a beacon of sorts, but not one meant for them. Elaren authorized a closer pass. As they neared, the ship responded. Its engines ignited, not with plasma, but a braided stream of gold and obsidian energy, a twisting coil of force that bent space around it like fabric. No known drive signature matched. The ship moved like a thought, instant, without trail. One moment it was above them. The next it orbited a broken moon, still watching. "We're being studied," said Kaelith. "No," Elaren corrected. "We're being taught." A sudden flare erupted from the planet below. Not an explosion, but an emergence. Something had been triggered. A buried monolith, black and humming with low-frequency vibration, cracked open. The ship descended, not to destroy it, but to absorb it. Tendrils of light extended from its hull, interfacing with the monolith, translating its code, if such a thing could be called that. The Virelians watched as data cascaded into the ship, absorbed without trace. Kaelith's system surged. He gripped his interface node, expression contorted in awe. "I saw it," he gasped. "A language without beginning. Concepts folded over themselves. It's not learning, it's remembering." Elaren's gaze fixed on the ship, dread slowly building beneath her composed exterior. "Then it isn't new. It's returning to something." A tremor passed through the Talas. Not physical, but cognitive, an overwhelming sensation of presence. The ship had noticed him again. This time it spoke, not in language, but in meaning. Images, feelings, entire histories compressed into flashes. A war without survivors. A decision to remain silent. A vessel created not as a weapon, but as a vault, a carrier of balance, built by those who came before, tasked with intervention only when the scale tipped too far. The Virelians, in their perfect order, had unknowingly shifted that balance. They had crushed rebellions before they had thoughts of freedom. They had rewritten entire biomes to serve civilization's ideals. Efficient, unquestioned, until now, the message faded. The ship's engines reignited. It did not fire. It did not destroy. It simply left, faster than thought, folding into a corridor of light and disappearing. The Talas drifted in the silence that followed. No one spoke. No one could. Back at the ascendant core, Elaren stood again before the conclave. She gave her report plainly. "It's not a threat," she said. "It's a consequence." Kaelith's mind still reeled. He had not slept, he couldn't. Fragments of the ship's transmission nested in his thoughts, reshaping how he viewed time, purpose, existence itself. "We believe ourselves the end of evolution," he murmured. "But we are only a variable." For the first time in memory, the arch lens did not respond. And far across the stars, the ship surged toward its next destination. It was not alone. Kaelith stood at the viewport of the Virelian Talas, eyes fixed on the fracturing stream of starlight stretching across the void. Though the stars remained distant, his thoughts were closer to them than ever. His neural pathways, once crisp and logical, now tangled with echoes of the ship's pulse. A rhythm older than language, older than light itself. He no longer needed the interface to receive data. It arrived unbidden. An inheritance he had neither asked for nor could refuse. Elaren watched him carefully. She recognized the signs. The slow bleed of identity, the sublimation of self into something larger. The same thing had happened to the old seers of the Virelian conclave when they tried to comprehend time outside causality. It didn't end with understanding. It ended with unraveling. "We have orders to disengage," she said, voice calm but absolute. Kaelith didn't move. "They're wrong. They're afraid," she corrected, stepping closer. "And so am I?" He finally turned. His eyes, once crystal clear, now shimmered with golden veins. The mark belonged exposure to incomprehensible data. "It showed me more," he whispered. "Another vault, another world. This ship, this guardian, it's unlocking something buried, something left behind by the first architects." Elaren paused. The name hadn't been spoken aloud in over 1,000 cycles. A myth even to the Virelians, the ones who came before all, who disappeared without trace, leaving behind laws of physics and truths encoded into space-time. "You're saying this ship belongs to them?" "No," Kaelith said, shaking his head slowly. "It is them, or what's left of them." A new signal pulsed through the dark, fainter this time, fractured across dimensions, but undeniably from the same source. The next destination, a gas giant in the collapsed Marnak Rift, inhospitable, violent, storm-choked. No known civilizations. But the ship was already there. Elaren weighed the decision silently. The conclave had ordered them to stand down, to return. A fleet was being assembled. And yet she knew what would happen if they obeyed. By the time the Virelian fleet arrived, it would be too late, not for the ship, but for the truth. "Prepare a jump," she said, turning from a viewport. We follow. The rift greeted them with chaos. Electrical storms lashed out like gods in conflict. Gas clouds roiled with unstable plasma, and gravitational distortions made navigation impossible for anything without conscious adaptation. But the Talas adapted. It had learned from the ship, copied fragments of its mathematical symmetry, enough to slip through the maelstrom without burning alive. There, suspended in the eye of a permanent storm, the ship hovered, and below it a construct, not natural, not native, a black pyramid, seamless and massive, embedded in the storm's heart, like a blade held in place by the fury around it. No scans worked. Light fell into it and did not return. Kaelith began to tremble. "This is the last key," he said. "The memory of the war." Elaren didn't speak. Her mind braced itself, but she could already feel the pressure, like standing before the event horizon of revelation. The ship descended, slow and deliberate. As it neared the pyramid, the storm above it ceased. An unnatural calm spread through the clouds, as though the planet itself recognized a returning monarch. A pulse rippled outward, this time not one of warning or invitation. It was activation. In response, Kaelith collapsed. Elaren caught him, but he was already convulsing. Streams of golden data flickered across his skin. She called for medical assistance, but the onboard system surged into lockdown. Every screen showed the same symbol, a circle split by 3 lines, rotating slowly, an emblem that had appeared on none of their records. "Let him go," a voice said. Elaren spun. It wasn't spoken aloud. It came from everywhere at once, through the walls, through her mind. The ship had spoken again, but not with sensation this time. It had used words. "He is the last interface," it continued. "The lock is mind-born. He must remember." Elaren's heart, if it could be called that, slowed. "Remember what?" There was a pause. Then, softly, "What you chose to forget." Kaelith's body stilled. His eyes opened bright, filled with alien clarity. "I see it now," he whispered. "The architects created us, but we were not their first creation. There was something before, a species made not from matter, but intention, a weapon of balance." He looked at Elaren, fear returning for the first time. "We destroyed them, or tried to, because we were afraid of what they could correct." Realization dawned. The Virelians, so advanced, so proud, were never the first. They were successors. And in their arrogance, they had buried what they couldn't dominate. Now the ship was awakening those remnants, reassembling the forgotten framework of order, one vault at a time. A low hum filled the ship. The pyramid below split down the center. From it rose another vessel, smaller, darker, but unmistakably kin to the one they had followed. 2 halves of a once-whole machine, reunited, and then both ships turned, not to flee, not to hide, but to move toward the core worlds. Kaelith stood unaided now, transformed. "It's begun," he said. Elaren nodded, silently issuing new coordinates. They would follow, again, but this time not as observers. This time, as witnesses to the reckoning. The 2 vessels moved with impossible grace, curving to the interstellar void as though guided not by propulsion, but by purpose. Elaren watched in the command nexus of the Virelian Talas, her fingers interlaced in unnatural stillness. Every instinct in her urged her to act, to warn the conclave, to raise defenses to prepare, but somewhere beneath the hardened programming of Virelian discipline, she understood the futility. This wasn't war. It was remembrance, and remembrance could not be stopped. Kaelith stood beside her, though he was no longer just Kaelith. The golden lattice in his veins now shimmered with a pulse in perfect sync with the twin ships. He moved differently, spoke rarely. When he did, it was with unsettling certainty, as though reading from a script written before time. "They will not attack," he said as they entered the orbit of Delira Prime, the Virelian capital world. "They will reveal. That is their power." All around them, the Dominion stirred. Dozens of Virelian dreadnoughts formed a perimeter around the planet, weapons humming with directed energy fields. Drones scanned continuously, pinging the approaching vessels without response. Communications laced with tension flooded the channel. Elaren gave no reply. She'd already spoken, already warned. Now they would see for themselves. The ships halted in synchronous silence, floating just beyond the perimeter. Then, with no signal or declaration, the smaller vessel released its payload. Light, not a beam or a weapon, but a sphere of compressed radiance, drifting slowly toward the planet's atmosphere. It passed through the defense grid untouched. The dreadnoughts held position, their captains hesitating in ways Virelians rarely did. The sphere expanded mid-descent, fracturing into countless golden strands. Each one descended across continents, cities, oceans. Wherever they touched, they didn't burn, they unveiled. Across the capital, Virelians fell still. Screens blanked, holograms dissolved, and in their place, visions, history unburied. Events they had long purged from the archive, the purging of the first Guardians, the extinction campaigns waged in the name of peace, the manipulation of stellar birth to collapse civil resistance. Truths they had sculpted out of collective memory now flared in golden light across the sky for all to see. Elaren watched it unfold, not from orbit, but through the memories flooding her neural thread. The architect's final warnings. Their failed attempt to create a race that balanced expansion with restraint. And the Virelians, their perfect, elegant successors, who had rewritten the future to favor control. And then, the worst truth of all, the twin ships weren't just constructs of the first architects. They were Virelian, not of this era, but of a past long buried, when dissenters among the Virelian early councils refused the purge of the first Guardians. They had fled, taking the last fragments of the architect's designs and weaving them into autonomous vessels. Part technology, part memory, part judgment. The ships had not vanished into myth. They had been waiting, hiding in folded dimensions, programmed to return only when the Dominion crossed a threshold of imbalance that could not be corrected from within. The threshold had been crossed centuries ago. Kaelith spoke, his voice distant. The ships are not executing judgment. They're offering truth. Judgment comes after acceptance. Across the Lyra Prime, panic and awakening war within the minds of the population. Some fell to denial, collapsing under the weight of contradiction. Others embraced it, casting aside positions, protocols, rank. And in the central node of the ascendant core, the Archland stood alone before a projection of himself, fractured by the golden light, seeing, for the first time, what he had become. Elaren received no orders. None were given. No fleet was launched. No commands were issued to fire. The ships waited. Then, with a soft resonance that rippled through matter and mind alike, the larger vessel sent one final transmission, not encoded, not encrypted. A single phrase, comprehensible in every language. Restore or be restored. They turned together and left. No trace. No warp signatures. Just silence and the soft hum of change. On the deck of the Talas, Kaelith sank to the floor, exhausted. The glow beneath his skin dimmed, though his eyes remained lit with residual understanding. It's done. Elaren asked. No, he whispered. It's begun. In the days that followed, the Dominion fractured, not through violence, but reformation, a reordering. The revelations could not be denied. The old truths have been unearthed, and with them, a chance, perhaps the last, to reshape what the Virelians had become. Elaren remained in orbit, refusing promotion, refusing acclaim. She spent her time listening to the stars, wondering if more ships would return, wondering if the first architects were still out there, watching. Kaelith recovered slowly. He no longer interfaced with systems. Instead, he began recording dreams he claimed were not his own. Maps, symbols, voices from before time. As for the ships, they were never seen again. But the Virelians no longer spoke of invincibility. They spoke of balance, of remembering, and of power not as a weapon but as a warning.